Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Top Cheddar podcast. So excited to have you join us again. I'm Rob Lullisher, my co-host. I've got Cam Moon joining me, and very excited for our guest today. Mr. Ken Brown has joined us from the deep south, the great state of Texas. How you doing today, Ken?
Best day of my life, Rob. I'm sure you've heard that before.
I love that. Ken is a very old mentor of mine too, so very, very thrilled that we could have him join us here on the Top Cheddar to, just talk about his hockey career, in and around the hockey career, golf, like just so many cool things Ken's been involved with. And you know what? Let's not wait anymore, Mooner. I want to spark us up with some fun little hockey stories. Over to you, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Ken, when I was going over your hockey career, I was so excited to be able to talk to somebody that was part of two different leagues starting. First of all, what is now the Western Hockey League, at that time was called the Western Canada Junior Hockey League, or whatever, eventually morphed into the WHL. And of course, you were at the beginning of the WHA with the Alberta Oilers, who then became the Edmonton Oilers. But Ken, I wanted to start with the Moose Jaw Canucks. You were with them for the first two seasons of their existence in the WHL. Ken, take me back to that time. What was it like being part of a brand new league?
Well, it was really fun. I mean, they had played in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League for years as the Moose Jaw Canucks, and we just kind of got settled in there in Western Canada Junior Hockey League. It was a lot of fun. A lot more traveling because we got to go outside of Moose Jaw and Saskatoon, and we got to go to Flin Flon, and we got to go to Edmonton, Calgary. But it was a lot of fun. We won that league the one year, but it was an outlaw league, so we couldn't play in the Memorial Cup. And that was a real disappointment. We would have played the Toronto Marlboros, who probably would have kicked our butts. But they were that was an exciting year for us.
What considered it an outlaw league, Ken?
Well, the Canadian Amateur Hockey Association wouldn't allow ex players or something that the team to join together. Like I say, all of a sudden we had Flon, and we had Edmonton Oil Kings and Calgary, and we had all kinds of teams all over the place, and so they didn't like breaking up the provincial thing. So they just didn't allow play for the Memorial Cup that particular year. We beat Regina League, Western Canada Hockey League Finals. We beat them 4-1, and the best of 9 with the Edmonton Oil Kings. Yeah, that's a Bill Hunter deal. We had a best of 9 series.
Everyone gets a ton of home games.
That's right.
The first place team and the 8th place team. Yeah, the first place team, the 8th place team played off. So that was us and the Oil Kings. And we eliminated them in 9 games, and we went on to play the Regina Pats. Isn't that wild?
Wow. What was that? I know that rivalry now in the WHL, Ken, it's absolutely crazy when Moose Jaw plays Regina. What was it like back then?
Same thing. It was it was a tong war. I mean, it was Ernie Hickey and they had some of the best players that you could possibly imagine. They had Fran Huck, who was just a spectacular player, and he was really good on the goal. Stan Gilbertson, who he ended up playing in the National Hockey for a long time. Rick Senta, really good players, and that was fun. But it was a tong war. I mean, Don Fadon was a tough defenseman, Doug Piper, and so it was really they were a really good team. But we had to scrap pretty good. We had an incident that Ernie Hickey speared one of my guys in the eye, Ken Hodge, who ended up being a coach in Portland.
Yep.
Basically took his eye, and that turned into a real bloodbath right there. That was a very unfortunate incident all the way around.
Whoa. Yeah, we still see Ken Hodge when we go to Portland now.
Yeah. Ask him about Ernie Hickey, and
I absolutely will. Yeah, that'd be great. Then you move on to the Central Hockey League. You play in the Chicago Blackhawks organization with the Dallas Blackhawks. I spent 4 seasons there. I got a game in with Chicago. Tell me about your game with the Chicago Blackhawks. Was that at home, on the road? Give me the details.
Well, I was. We were sitting in a hotel room, by myself and the other goaltender, Jimmy Shaw, sitting in the hotel room on Sunday afternoon watching the Chicago Blackhawks on TV. And Jerry Desjardins, the goalie, who was the backup to Tony Esposito at that time, he broke his wrist on TV, and Jimmy and I kind of looked at each other. Uh-oh, who's going? So it ended up, I got the good straw, and I ended up going. And the thing was, Tony had like 16 shutouts that year. And he had a bonus, maybe it was $10,000, I think, something like that, to keep his goals against average under 2. So when I got there was like 6 games left. Before every game, Pitt Martin and myself and Tony would sit down and figure out how far he had to go into the game with 0 goals against, or 1 goal against, or 2 goals. So we figured out in this game in Madison Square Gardens against the Rangers that Tony had to go 2 full periods with only 1 goal against, or the entire game with 2 goals against. And the Rangers scored at the start of the 3rd period, so I got to play that part of the game, the last 18 minutes. And at that time there was nobody covering anything, right? I mean, it was a newspaper, Times and the Post and stuff in New York.
Yeah.
We were going back on the flight, so we never got any pictures or, and out of the blue, a guy called me talked to me on Facebook, and he had the video of me playing that 3rd period. It's the first time I've ever seen it. Isn't that incredible?
That's awesome.
And so it was all in black and white. Yeah, it was in black and white, and it was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. Because my kids had never seen me play, and so they get a chance to see that game my only game in New York City. So that was awesome.
Wow.
That's a great find. Yeah, no doubt.
And it's in New York City. You're at the Garden. Yeah.
John Rattel scored on a power play. John Rattel scored on me on a power play. I remember that, over my right shoulder. But it was just a thrill. I was 21, 22 at the time, and it was just like, wow, this is so cool. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. We lost to the Montreal Canadiens in Game 7 in our building in the Stanley Cup Finals. So the Game 7 was in the Chicago Stadium. We lost to the Montreal Canadiens. Jacques Lemaire scored that long one from center ice on Tony Esposito. And that was that. When I look back, I was probably as big a disappointment as I've ever had. We could have been in that Stanley Cup atmosphere.
Yeah.
But we lost that game. So we lost that game 3-2. And
was that Ken Dryden when he came up from Cornell and he landed up winning the Conn Smythe before he won the Calder?
Yeah. He stoned Boston before he got to us, and he stoned Boston with the great teams that they had. I mean, they won the Stanley Cup in 70, and then he stoned them in 71, and then he came on and stoned us too.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's you were there.
I was there.
Damn you, Ken Dryden.
And I sat beside Tony the whole time. Tony, the 2nd period, and the puck went over his shoulder from center ice. And all period, all intermission, he just had a garbage barrel in front of him, and he was just a mess. And I just felt so bad for him. Awful. What a horrid dressing room scene that was.
Yeah, that would have been tough. After you're done in Dallas, you're part of the WHA starting 1972. The Alberta Oilers, who were in Edmonton, eventually became the Edmonton Oilers, but I know for the first year or maybe 2, they were called Alberta Oilers. That was, you talk about a rebel league. I know the WHL was called the Rebel League that first year. Well, the WHA absolutely was a rebel league in every sense of the word, and a new pro league, and it helped drive salaries up. It put pro hockey in places that didn't have pro hockey, and some places that already did have pro hockey. But nonetheless, what was it like being part of the WHA that's had so many great stories told about it?
Well, I guess there's so many stories about the league, players using their credit card to pay for jet fuel for an airplane,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's great stories. But it was a whole blend of guys getting together from teams from all over. It wasn't like there was no team that was there before and just added to it or anything. We were all from all different teams, from every league, from universities, from junior, and it was all over the place. So that was pretty cool. But I think when I think back on it, I think one of the most exciting things about it was that as a first-year team, we got to set the culture. So we got a big logo, an Oiler logo in our dressing room, on the floor of the dressing room. It was a big 6 feet, 8 feet at that time.
Yep.
You couldn't walk on that logo. You do not walk on the Oiler logo. That was one of our deals. Well, I've got my Oiler jersey on now.
Looking good.
But
Yeah, I can
Oilers,
appreciate that.
the assistant captains were the only guys that sign up here, up on the top part of the Oiler. And as you made your way up in the team, you could sign the bottom parts and stuff like that. But the captain is the only guy who can sign where the heart is, on the left-hand side of the jersey. That's the only place, and he's the only guy that can sign there. So, just stuff like that,
Yeah.
that we decided you're going to be the culture of the Edmonton Oilers. It's still there today. And that's pretty cool. Almost 50 years later, you guys were there. And that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I know
that was the league. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I know the Northlands Coliseum, it didn't open until 74, and you were part of the Edmonton Oilers at that time. But when the WHA began, you guys were in the old Edmonton Gardens. What was the atmosphere like in that rink?
It was really fun. Anybody who was a hockey fan who stepped up, we had building only seated 5,200 at that time, 5,300 at that time. And mostly we had close to full sellouts. So it was but it was very intimate compared to an 18,000 seat building that we were going into later on. But it was really cool. Two level player boxes. So the players that were on, shifting, they were in the lower level, and then us goons were in the back, sitting on the top deck of it. So
that's great.
Just stuff like that. It was really cool. It was really cool. Yeah.
Ken, when you think about old Wild Bill Hunter during that time and just the big role he played in bringing pro hockey to Edmonton, you have a standout memory of Bill during that time?
I was in his office and just negotiating we had just negotiated my contract, and my lawyer was there, and Bill says, "Is there anything else that I can do for you while we're here?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to buy a house, so maybe if you could help me with my mortgage." So he says, "I can do that. Sure. I'm going to make a phone call right now." So Bill picks up the phone. He phones Northwest Mortgage. I don't know who it was at the time. I know it was Northwest Mortgage. And he said, "This is Bill Hunter of the Edmonton Oilers, the Alberta Oilers hockey team. I'd like to see if I could get a mortgage." Bill Hunter, Alberta Oilers hockey team. Are you not a hockey fan? So that was pretty cool. That was like my first go around with Bill. And
this is how you get a mortgage.
This is how you do it.
There you go.
Well,
yep. And so he did that. It was and just the dressing room stuff. You have to point with your get my hand into the picture, but you have to point with your 5 fingers going out. Point with your hands together, because when you point like that, there's 3 pointing back. So Bill always pointed with his fingers out like this, because he never wanted to have fingers pointing back at him for something that he had said. And he used to start off lots of speeches with, "Fellas, tonight I want you to listen to me with your eyes, your ears, and your heart." And he'd point to the wrong places on his body every time.
What a character.
That's so awesome.
Hilarious. But Oh, he was funny, and we just, I mean, his heart was so huge, and he just tried so hard.
Yeah.
But we just didn't have the muscle of the team at that time. But it was fun being around.
I recall hearing the story of him, how he was, I don't know how often he did it, but did it once where he'd call a press conference to announce that he was having a press conference.
Yes.
The next day.
Yeah.
Only Bill Hunter.
Only Bill Hunter. And like when the WHA was first starting, I had signed, and then he'd signed Stevie Carlisle from the University of Alberta. And Stevie and I looked quite a bit alike at that time, except Stevie had he had red hair, and he was like Bozo the Clown, he had the little pieces that came out of his helmet. So they're having the press conference to announce Steve, and because the players were invited to all the press conferences just to talk to the media. I go walking in, and he says, "Steve, you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in the back." He was thinking that I was Stevie Carlisle as I walked in the press conference.
Oh, wow.
But, that was so early. That was so early in the group. Half of us didn't know each other anyway. So to call, he used to say he really didn't believe in that point of university hockey players. We were playing Boston, the New England Whalers, and they were chock full of Boston University guys and Boston College guys. And his pregame speech was, "You put me in a room with a bunch of those college weirdos and I'll have half their money." Stevie Carlisle and Bob McAneely, who came right out of university, they were laughing. They played. Stevie went to his wallet after a practice and he said, "Brownie, somebody stole half my money."
Yeah, that's right. Well, his gumption and his get to itness. I mean, it helped the league. It helped Edmonton. And before that, it helped the Oil Kings. Like, it's amazing. He helped get that building built in Edmonton, and you were part of that when it opened on November 10th of '74. How exciting a time was that when Northlands Coliseum opened?
Well, it was because he used to make us go over there and just be after practices or whatever, we'd go over in our running shoes and just take a look at how the building was going up,
Yep.
And so that was really cool to do that. And then the night of in the 4th of November, when we had the first game against Cleveland, Jerry Cheevers versus Jacques Plante. Can you imagine? How good was that? So anyway, we're preparing to go into the but what happens was there was nothing downstairs. The dressing rooms were framed and built, and they had seats in them, but there was no showers. There was no way other than they put a new mat to get on from the players' dressing room to the ice, because there was nothing there that would protect our skates.
Oh,
so our family, my dad and I owned a business at the time called Dad's Insulation, and we had a generator on our truck. And so we pulled our truck downstairs before the game, and we used our truck to give additional lighting, power the skate sharpener. We used our truck downstairs to generate the electricity to do the lighting and the skate sharpener.
So you and your dad sponsored all the sharp
over in a school bus from the gardens.
Jeez, sponsored all the sharp turns that night.
By Dad's Insulation.
I guess. Wow. That's exciting.
Plante versus
so that was,
Cheevers.
Just stuff like that was, and I didn't play. I didn't get dressed that night. Chris Worthy dressed as a backup to Jacques, and I was just in the building walking around trying to meet friends and stuff like that. And they were making an announcement: "Please be careful as you take your seat. They may not be anchored properly." And
just sat them in.
And they made it every 5 minutes because it was such a rush to get the building up for that day. And what construction's like, so they were. It was, and the sensation of the people was just, it was awesome. I mean, like I say, it was so good with Plante, Cheevers. We won 4-2. Jacques won 4-2, and it was as outstanding as it gets. I mean, that was good. Yeah.
Great start to hockey in Edmonton. Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, pro hockey. Yeah, it had a good long run with the Oil Kings and that.
Yeah.
So Ken, from the hockey career, you jumped up into the media booth. So, maybe the radio booth there. Tell us, like, how did that come to be? How did that opportunity come about? And tell us about that part of your career.
Well, I was, when I quit hockey, I really had nothing to do. I was 25, 26 years old, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had an opportunity to go to work at a radio station that you guys might know, CJWW in Saskatoon.
Yep.
They were just getting off the ground. We were the first people that worked there. I ended up being the sales manager there after a couple of years. And so my brother-in-law had been part of the ownership group, and he got bought out. So I just said, I'm going to Edmonton, going back to Edmonton, which was my home anyway. And I went to CFRN Radio, saw Jim Edwards was the station manager. He became a member of parliament later on, one of my idols. And they just invited me, and Al McCann, Tiger Woods, Tiger Goldstick, Rod Phillips.
Yeah.
We did the broadcasts, the group of us, for a couple of years, and then Rod and I basically took over. We were there November the 3rd when Gretz came in, and just followed that crew right till I was there for 4 Stanley Cups. And
nice.
Just as great as you could possibly imagine. So that was one. That's one of the great thrills of your life, is being around those kids, watching those kids grow up. Great Wayne's there at 17, and watching him grow up, and man, they were so good. That team was so good and so wonderful to watch. It was awesome.
Do you remember? Obviously you saw record after record being shattered and broken. What was there a standout moment, Ken, that you called that night that just really stuck with you?
Well, I think there was a game in Chicago when I said, okay, it was a tied game with about 7 minutes to go. And I said, okay, here's the deal, Rod. We've got 3 shifts left for each of their lines from both the Blackhawks. And I said, Gretz is going to get to go out against a bad line sooner or later. And he scored the winning goal. And I remember calling that. That was a pretty good call. And then the Gretzky 5-goal night for 50 goals in 39 games.
Right.
That just came right out of the blue. I mean, that shouldn't have happened. It was going to be, it was like December the 27th or 28th or something like that. And it was just wild. And then, we got talking about with guys later, and Kevin says, go to the rink with him that day. And he said, I'm going to get 50 tonight. I'm going to get my 50th. And he did. And it was just, it was one of those special moments, and the excitement was just unbelievable. So that was great.
I remember listening to you, Ken, and Rod, when Gretz got his 77th against Buffalo against Don Edwards. I had a minor hockey game. I was at the Oliver Arena, and the game was over, and I wanted to get into the car as soon as we could so that we could put the game on the radio and then maybe catch the end of it when we got home or whatever. But again, back then, not many games were on TV. In fact, I don't think that one was. And we were just pulling out of the Oliver parking lot onto like 104th Ave, and he scored. And I heard your guys call. It's like burned into my memory.
What a thrill! Yeah, that was yeah. I mean, he stumbled and fell over the blue line and finally got open. And wow, what a play! That was
Yep.
Yeah, you had.
Can you imagine watching him?
Well, I was going to say the front row, high row seat to so much greatness, and I know too. You got to see a lot of interesting moments behind the scenes too. Like you were a big part of that team everywhere they went, and I recall you once sharing a fun little story out of LA, a kind of a behind the scenes moment. Why don't you share that with us, Ken?
Well, when we go to LA, we made friends with Jamie Farr from MASH. Jamie was Klinger on MASH. And he came up to our broadcast booth and introduced himself.
Was he wearing a dress when he came up to you? That's the only question.
Well, we teased him about that. We said we didn't recognize him without his dress on. But he came up and he introduced himself, and he brought his son Jonah. And he sat in on a bunch of broadcasts broadcasts with us, and he just became a real friend. And we tried to tie together a party with the MASH guys and us, and we got to the set of MASH, had a whole bus full of people that were on there. There was wives on the trip and everything, and it was just so much fun. Jamie had Tony Pacos of Toledo send his chili dogs and his Polly beer, and we just had a great afternoon. It was just so much fun. Alan Alda treated us like kings, and it was just, gosh, it was so good. And Jamie was just so happy to have us all there. And what a thrill that was. And he became a really good friend, like he was at the Mayfield Dinner Theater seemingly every year.
Yeah.
And we just loved going to see him. He treated us again like kings, and he was so much fun.
Right on. Yeah, that's I love that story. I remember seeing a photo you had of seeing the Oiler team on the set of MASH, which so what was that? Is that like a bus ride over one of the hills in LA, and all of a sudden you're on the MASH set? And
it was right down my daughter actually lived about 2 blocks away from there eventually, but it was right down in one of the studios that I don't know if it was Columbia Studio or what it was, but it was right down in the main street but it was on inside a studio, and we saw them film a scene, and we all had a little sip out of that martini glass that Alan Alda used.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Stuff like that. We had Father Mulcahy. We all had our pictures taken with Father Mulcahy.
Nice.
And,
my God.
Radar was there.
Yeah.
How good was that? That was so much fun. And we got to the rink that night, and Morgan Fairchild was there. Oh, my goodness.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So, that drew a pretty good crowd of people. And Rod says, I can't see her. I said, well, stand up on your chair like I am. We were there one afternoon, and I'm sitting having a coffee in the coffee room. And Larry Messier, Mark's uncle, comes up to me, and he says, Brownie, do you have any interest in having Muhammad Ali on the broadcast tonight? I said, what? He says, I'll bring Muhammad Ali up after the first intermission, after the first period. I guess we're interested. So Muhammad Ali's coming up the steps, 19-minute mark, 18-minute mark of the first period. And here comes Ali, followed by Larry Messier, and the whole crowd behind us. Everybody behind us starts chanting, Ali, Ali, Ali.
Oh, that would be something.
And they just went on. Here comes Muhammad Ali. He joins us. And in the broadcast booth in LA was in the middle of dance. They just had 4 benches. That was the broadcast. Him and it's just a crime that we didn't have cell phones at the time, so you could take a picture.
No doubt.
We just never thought of carrying a small camera around. But having Ali on the broadcast and getting to talk and have an interview with him, how good was that? It's just mind-boggling.
Awesome.
So from the broadcast career, Ken, you embarked on a new chapter that the print business was still quite a going concern back in the day, and you had a really, really nice run with the Edmonton Sun, with Sun Media. You were the director of advertising there, and that's when our paths first crossed. You hired a little snot-nosed ex-hockey player underneath you, but what kind of memories stand out during that time, Ken, of the lessons you took from hockey and into the business world, and how'd you make that work best for you?
Well, I was a sales manager at CFRM when I finished with CFRM. Before I left to go to no idea about print, and it took me a long time to really cross over and to really delve into it. But I just put in my time. I was going to get my day done. I was going to work my ass off to be as good as I could be. I studied, I worked, I spent time with clients, I spent time with readers, and we just had a fun career. We had a lot of really good people come into the Sun. It's something I had never experienced before, where somebody had come into the newspaper for a meeting, an interview, and said, I just have to work for the Sun. I have to. And that was so cool. We had a lot of kids. We had, Rob, there was 65 of us on the floor at one time there when we were at our height, when you were there and I was there.
Just in one department. That's the whole paper these days.
Yes, exactly. And so, we just got into it, dedicated ourselves to it, put together a really good team. I think our team was really good all the way around. John Caputo, Gordy Swinghammer. Yeah. Craig Martin is one of my idols anyway, but he was a great, great, great boss. David Black. So we had great people supporting us. Like, Craig used to say, he said, that's okay. We did that. Yeah, we maybe didn't do that very well, but let's not make that mistake again. Let's not make that mistake for the second time. And his great line was, you'll have to love a bad plan poorly executed. And that was one of his great lines. But we had a really good team. I think we had 60 budgets in a row, Rob, 60 monthly budgets in a row, and it's like that doesn't happen or didn't happen. And those were great days, and probably the height of the newspaper business. Yes.
You talk so much about the team and just the different roles that everyone played, and it's funny that bring in another sporting great for a moment, but I tell so many people how lucky I was to sit next to Wes Covington, one of the great baseball players. Tell us a story about Wes. Like how did Wes get to the Edmonton Sun?
Oh my God! Well, he started in Toronto when the Toronto Sun was originally starting, I guess now 40 years ago at least now, and he was selling a TV magazine there. And they got so tired of him that they wanted to ship him to Edmonton when we started. so they shipped poor old Wes out to Edmonton, and he knew nothing, and he knew nothing about the West or anything like that. But he turned into a great sales guy with us. He had his own different ideas, played to a different drummer. He was a character. He would straighten managers out as best he could. But he was a character. I don't think he ever showed up at a sales meeting. He always had a doctor's appointment at 8:00 on Tuesdays. But he was a character.
So Wes won, what was it, 3 World Series?
With the Braves, and he won the MVP. He was the MVP of the 57 World Series. Yeah. He in the bottom of the 8th inning, he went over the wall and brought a home run back with his catch.
Yeah.
And then he was the first guy in the bottom of the 9th, on the top of the 9th, and he hit a series winning home run. And so that was his moment of glory. And
I do remember
a video of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember Wes must have come to one sales meeting, because at that sales meeting, Ken pulled out some footage of Wes snagging that catch, and that was a great moment watching Wes.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
He a line that stuck with me forever. I think you were all over him about a big account, and where are we at, Wes? And his reply was, well, we in bed, but we ain't making love yet. And that was just his. We're getting there.
The picture. That paints the picture.
Get off my back.
That would be Wes.
That was a great time. Is there a success in the newspaper business, a moment that sticks out in your mind, Ken, that you're just, man, I'm so proud of that one thing we did during your time with the Sun chain?
Wow. We just did, there was a kid, and I can't remember the details of what his disease was, what his problem was. But we said, okay, we haven't hit budget this week. We're going to go out to advertisers, and we're going to get them to give us an extra ad or some ads, and we're going to split whatever we get today. We're going to split with the family. And we ended up turning $7,500 over to the family. And I thought that was pretty cool that we would do that. We made some money out of the deal, which didn't hurt.
Yeah. Create a win-win.
Yeah, and the family we just turned over a check to $7,500, and it just kind of fell out of the sky for them. So I thought that was a really wonderful thing that we did. But the Sun always did stuff like that. Gee whiz, they had they had people that thought about that stuff, and they did a great job. There were so many things that we did that was
I like that, because it's an interesting story of like you say, you created a win-win out of a scenario that wasn't the norm of business, but a great community moment and still a business moment, right? And well, as we both kind of discovered that there was a tough times were coming for the newspaper business, and we went on to different careers, and you had another neat career back with the Edmonton Oilers, but this time in the business office. And what were you doing there, Ken? What was that all about?
Well, I was kind of looking for something to do. When the cool part was the day that I was leaving the Sun, I just said, they asked me to take out 12 people from our staff, them go when Quebec took over. So I said, but I'll be the first one, because I can't go back in that sales office and ask these people to deliver with 20% of their partners gone. So I left, and as I put my stapler in my suitcase and heading out, my phone rings, and it was my friend Wilf from Northern Bear Golf Club. He owned Northern Bear. And he says, somebody told me you were leaving the Sun.
I heard your briefcase close.
I just picked it up right now. He says, well, get your ass over here. Yeah. He says, get your ass over here and be my director of golf. So I spent one summer as the director of golf at Northern Bear. It wasn't even finished yet. But we were there. And Jack, I got to spend 4 hours in the car with Jack one day, Jack Nicklaus one day, as he went and did final walkthrough. So that was pretty cool. No doubt. Then I got a call from the Oilers that, maybe you should come and talk about this director of ticket sales for us, because we're looking for somebody. So I ended up talking to Patrick LaForge, and we just one meeting, and we were starting the next day. It was basically bring your lunch to the meeting, and let's go from there. And I spent, I think this was almost 4 years there. And, like you ask about things that are proud of, the building started getting sold out. It was a good team. Patrick had some good ideas getting people in the building. And we started the streak where we had consecutive, and it was really cool when I was leaving at night and I heard Rod say 16,539 attendance tonight, and that was our 33rd consecutive sellout. That is a real, what a thrill when you were involved with that. And so to have that be the start of 500 and something consecutive sellouts for the Oilers. How good was that? I mean, that was amazing. So great support for a team that had trouble getting back after 2006, but it was a lot of fun.
What was it like selling? Did you sell the experience? It was obviously hanging your hat on the record was always dangerous territory. Maybe share a bit about what your approach was to that, Ken.
Well, I think Alan Watt was the guy who established that kind of a thing. Our town, our team. Previously they had advertised Gordie Howe's coming or Bobby Clark is coming. Well, no. We want to talk about our team playing tonight, and it's our town and our team. And that's, I think, when we focused in on that and built the pride of, Oiler or the what do they call it? Oil country. I think when we focused on that, we did a really good job with that. And, we had high end, we had all the businesses in Edmonton kicking in and buying. And we also got to the schools. We built a program called Reading, Give It a Shot. Okay. And we got school kids into the building. And, you had to read 500 books in a month, or so that kid like Rob Lawless, who doesn't read, he's going to have to read a couple of books this month. So he's got to get his butt going. So they had a chance to come to the game and just party, and they'd have the atmosphere in the building.
Was that program? Was that a program, Ken, aimed at like immediate support for the club, or was it a decision that, okay, it's a little good now, but boy, we're really going to build some future season ticket holders here with this program?
Well, what it did was it gave us, as the ticket people, a chance to sell the tickets that weren't going to move that night.
Right. So
we had games, and I'm trying to come up with team names, but Columbus would come in, and Edmonton was least. They had no excitement at all for Columbus Checkers, right?
Right.
Or Columbus, whatever they were.
Yep.
And so we had 1,200 seats still available. So let's invite 1,200 school kids in, fill those seats, and that's how it helped the Oilers.
Perfect.
And so we had like 12,000 tickets of that ilk that we had sold to sponsors. They in turn gave them to us to use for the kids.
Okay.
And it was a perfect scenario for us and for the kids. I mean, the kids raised the volume that night about, against Columbus.
Oh, big time.
The Blue Jackets, they would be screaming and yelling and chanting. And so it was really fun to do stuff like that. That was really cool.
And you're building fans for down the road.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the generation now that it picked up through the new building. And, I see all those pictures of these young kids with, I follow the Oilers on Facebook, and I see all these pictures of these young kids, 18, 20 years old. That was the guy that we had in the building against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So
Hey,
I have to tell you one story, though.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
I have to tell you one story. My proudest moment as the director of the Edmonton Oilers ticket sales was the day I signed with Patrick LaForge and Eric Upton. They said, what's your goals? What would your goals be on this? I said, my number one goal is to get Glenn Hall back in this building as a fan. Because Glenn got bounced by the Oilers when I was the goalie. He got let go as a coach in the first year of the Alberta Oilers. And he never came back to see an Oiler game as a fan. He went to the Calgary Flames and coached them through their Stanley Cup in 1989. Sure. But he was in the building as a scout, but he never came back as a fan. And he despised the Oilers. He's my idol. 10 years old, I just idolized Glenn Hall, like right straight through my whole life. And I got a chance to play under him as my coach. My goodness gracious, how good was that? He put on the pads one day. He was 38. He just retired. Nobody scored on Glenn in that practice.
Wow.
Not once on individual shots, not once on line rushes. They never scored. It was just unbelievable. It was so spectacular to watch him play and to watch him do that. It was unbelievable. Anyway, I said, that's my goal, is to get Gooler back in this building. So late in the last full season that I was there.
Yeah.
And we started a Stony Plain Chamber of Commerce night. And so the Stony Plain Chamber of Commerce was selling tickets and stuff for us, bringing buses in. And we got Glenn to come in and drop the first puck for us. And I got a chance to walk him out to center ice to drop that first puck. And I'd never seen that crowd so heartfelt, so loving. They gave him one of the greatest standing ovations. The players on each bench were pounding their sticks against the boards. What a thrill.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then I had his family in a suite, we had a party that night that may still be going. And Glenn showed up 2 days later to have coffee with Tommy Sello in the dressing room before practice. How good is that? I mean, he's nice. I mean, goodness gracious. He was like that, you know, I mean, he was so excited about St. Louis winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, that was so exciting for him.
Pretty good goal achieved. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I laughed at Glenn. Glenn had some great lines. He says the doggone wild dogs got into his farm the other night and killed half his herd. I said, that's awful. He says, yeah, the other one's okay. The other cow was okay. But he also says, you know, I can only imagine how many times he saw Bobby Orr's goal scored last year during the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
When he's flying through the air. Yeah. He says, I can't believe that's the only goal Bobby Orr has ever scored. He says it's the only one you ever see.
You always do.
Any other clips of this guy?
Yeah. So there's always Glenn Hall kicking the puck out of the net, digging the puck out of the net and everything. So he's my idol, and I sent him a card for the Stanley Cup victory, and he's just something else.
Nice. Geez, when you said you sat down and when they asked, what do you want? I thought, oh, geez, Ken's getting another mortgage here in his second negotiation. Yeah. So Ken, we're running a little long, but we'll make all the time in the world for you. Your last big work chapter, you head south to Texas to be with family. You've been there about 15 years now. Tell us a bit about, you had another really interesting chapter back into the world of golf and tell us about that.
Well, I was looking for a job when I got here. I had to wait for my green card to get through it. It took us almost a year. So I was looking for a job, and all of a sudden I see this one director of sales for a golf tournament. I was like, wow, I know that gig.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up being the director of sales for the FedEx Kinko's Champions Tour event that was here. Played on a Jack Nicklaus golf course, one of the first ones Jack ever built. And, you know, it was all the guys that you think would be coming, you know, just the Gary Players and Arnold Palmers and everybody of that ilk coming to our town to play.
Wow.
And so I got to sell the advertising. I got to sell the Pro-Am tickets in the Pro-Am. I got to sell the grandstand seating and stuff like that. So that lasted 4 years, and then on the PGA Tour. So they bailed out of the sponsorship.
Okay.
And our group that owned the tournament, they brought this other group in, Triton Developments, and I didn't like those guys. And a year later, they were found to be a Ponzi scheme. And
oh man,
the guy's in jail now for 40 years. But
you sniffed that one out pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I just didn't like that guy. And I got back into the newspaper business with the Austin American Statesman, and I was there for 7, 8 years.
Nice.
Rob, I developed such a love, such a respect for the newspaper industry trying to stay relevant. It was so difficult for them. You know, they had the cat by the butt for song as news, and they got, you know, they would cocky, and the newspaper industry was different. But when the internet stuff started and all these things started, they fought so hard to be relevant. It was, and I just so admire the newspaper here. They own their own radio station. They got all these things going on to stay relevant, and I just so admire that. I really do. And I had great times. I can imagine me being the automotive sales guy for them. It was great.
If I'm not mistaken, what has grown into probably one of the most famous festivals in the world, South by Southwest in Austin, was started by a couple newspaper guys. And so when you talk about creating new opportunities, here's this festival that's at the forefront of where art and technology meets. Have you headed out to South by Southwest at all, Ken?
I have been part of it. I've never been at the events, but let me tell you about like South by Southwest. Our building in the American Statesman was right down in the river, just off down the block from Congress. And when you would go to your car during South by Southwest, every step you'd take, you'd hear different music from different places because the town was all just lit up. Yeah. And there was just music everywhere. It was so exciting. They had to cancel it this year because of the pandemic, but yep. It is, my daughter's been there a few times, and she's on both ends, the music and the technology. But it's quite a festival. ACL is a big event too. City yep. Limits Festival.
That's you're hanging your head in a pretty cool town there now. But
yeah,
it's on my bucket list to head down there. Save a bedroom for me, Ken, because I hear it's tough to get a hotel in there during that time.
Brown's Bed and Breakfast is good.
Brown's Bed and Breakfast. Yeah. With a mortgage brought to you by Bill Hunter.
Yeah. There you go.
Ken, you spent so much of your life in hockey, right around hockey, and then a couple careers outside of it. If there was something that you really took from the game into all those other roles, what would you say that is? What sticks with you?
Wow. Put in your time, first of all. Put in your time. You're not going to be at the top of any list when you first get there. That's not going to happen. Be fair. But I learned this from Glenn Sather. Be patient.
Yep.
Rod and I wanted to get rid of Yari Curry so bad. And we said, he can't play in this league. He's not good enough. And, 17 years later, Yari's number 5 in scoring or whatever.
Yeah.
But just be patient. I go back to a story that I love from the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1988. Walt Alston. And he brought in a pitcher from Cleveland named Bert Hooton, who was a University of Texas grad, great pitcher. And he's 22 years old. And Hooton went out first time for the Dodgers, and he just got bombed. And I knew how some of my coaches would react if that happened to a goalie. And I heard that Walt Alston went over to him, and he patted him on the shoulder, and he said, "Bert, get ready. You're going back in 4 days." And I just felt like that's how you treat young people. That's how young people learn and gain confidence. And I think that I tried to keep on in everything I did, especially in the radio and newspaper business.
Yeah. And
just give young kids a chance, be patient, watch them grow, and just be patient with them because they'll fulfill you.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, Ken, that
that's my biggest takeaway.
Ken, I'm not surprised you're very cognizant of that as being an old goaltender. I've noticed in the hockey business, goalies, goalies get a small window of opportunity to impress, like early on, that if you don't play well early, that might be the only shot you get. So I'm not surprised you're right on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like you play from some tough coaches. Imagine having play for Mike Keenan and think you're going to be an experienced goalie. It's not going to happen.
No.
So
tough sledding there.
It's
Well, as one of those young guys that you gave a chance to, Ken, when you hired me fresh out of school, right out of Nate, and gave me a heck of a, I'd say a patient opportunity, and it was a great lesson I hold to this day. You didn't just throw me in and say go to work. You threw me in and let me spend every day. I went with a different person, a different department, and just got this understanding of the business all around before you started beating the heck out of me in the ad department and let's go make budget but it was such an awesome environment of work hard, keep going, deadlines and but to this day I consider you a great mentor of mine, and I'm so pleased that we could get an hour of your time, Ken, down in the great state of Texas to join us on the Top Cheddar podcast. And thank you, my friend.
Rob, it's been my pleasure. It was so nice to meet Cam. Can't even tell you, when he was a young goaltender, because he was from Edmonton, and I just really enjoyed that. And the way I feel like with the Bird Hooten story is that you give people a chance, give them an opportunity. I felt that way about you.
Well, folks, I'm Rob Lullisher, my co-host of the Top Cheddar podcast, Cam Moon. Thanks for everything, Cam. This was a great little chat with Ken Brown.
Always good, yes.
Goalie during Moose Jaw, Edmonton Oilers, time with the Oilers, the newspaper biz, the golf biz, a mentor of mine, and for very good reason. You've done amazing things in your career, Ken, and hell, you got a few good chapters left in you. I'm excited to chat more down the road. But Ken, thanks for joining us today. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks to you too. Appreciate it. Thank you.